Hello, my name is Hye Ran. I'm teach Korean and Korean study at High School of Economics and Russian University for Humanities. I'm very happy and delighted to have an opportunity to give my presentation at University Philippines. The topic of my presentation today is historical and identity characteristic of Korea diaspora literature in Russia as unification and multicultural literature, focusing on Sakhalin literature work when I become the sea. Multicultural, multi-ethnic, and multilingual global cities have emerged due to the movement of modern global capital, labor, and technology, and free international migration through networks is giving rise to a new concept of diaspora. In modern sense, diaspora can be defined as a concept encompassing international migration, refugees, migrant works, ethnic community, cultural difference, and identity. In classical sense, it has the meaning of the ethnic dispersion and national separation. Etymologically, diaspora is a compound word of dia as superior to so and meaning of people scattered across borders. The purpose of my presentation is examine the possibility of local research as unified and multicultural education based on the classical and modern concept of diaspora. The Korean diaspora began with the migration of Koreans to the Russian Far East in 1860s. The works of poets, novelists, and playwrights were published in the page of the Korean newspaper Sambong, which was founded in Vladivostok on March 1st, 1923. Approximately 4,400 Sakhalin Koreans have permanently returned to South Korea and are living in Goryeo village in Ansan, Gyeonggi-do province. They have removed from a life served proposed conscription to Sakhalin to new settlement and are living as multicultural citizens of South Korea. In other words, they are forming a new diaspora and multiculturalism, creating new cultural transformation. I believe that Sakhalin literature, overcoming borders, we served as part of multicultural literary education that will be able to find the common basis in life of Koreans who have been separated for a long time. And in the future, as part of a unifying literary education that will be able to find the common basis in the life of Sakhalin Koreans who migrated from Russia to North and South Korea. The Korea Diaspora Literary When I Become the Sea by Victoria Choi, a current permanent resident of Korea and third generation Sakhalin, contain the family history of a generation of Sakhalin compatriots from 1830 to 2022, as well as the history of Korea, Japan, Russia by era. Koreans who were taken to Sakhalin coal mines by the Japanese proposed labor. grandparents who were among the Korean who were drafted and died longing for their homeland for a long time without knowing Russian. The story of a comfort woman. The reason why Sakhalin Korean were ruled by Soviet Union again after Japanese defeat in 1945. Why they remained stateless and then acquired Soviet citizenship. The visit of Koreans to Sakhalin right after the 1988 Olympics. The search for separated family among Sakhalin and South North Korea. The naturalization of Korean compatriots to Korea. All these are stories of the family love. It contains the heart of love, wanting to return to hometown for following the sea by cremated one's body after death and scattered ashes under the sea. Rituality is product of thought and consciousness, and therefore an ever equal exchange between people, nation, and the world. As a community with shared historical destiny, diaspora literature created in Russian Central Asia can further expand the possibility for the South and North Korea to become unification literature. Especially in countries such as Central Asia and Russia, where communication have been cut off due to the political and historical circumstance. Cultural transformation of Korea diaspora literature written in local language can create the understanding and sympathy between the two countries. In addition, culture translation that informed about the inheritance of Korean culture's tradition and understanding of the local culture in Russia and Central Asia is believed to narrow the cultural gap between Korea and Russia. The world historical experiences and sympathy of modern and contemporary Koreans can allow Korean literature to occupy a special position in the world. The symphony Sakhalin was attributed by the island by the Mongols in 30th centuries, meaning rock entering the Black River. Indigenous Ainu language, island of bridges. In Japanese, Karahuto. Russian constitution, the majority of Sakhalin population accounting for nearly 80% of total. The largest ethnic minority on Sakhalin is Koreans, comprising 12% of the population. Following Japanese defeat in the Pacific War in 1945, the Japanese repatriation only Japanese citizens and indigenous Ainu people from Sakhalin, abandoning thus the Korean descendants who were taken to Sakhalin coal mines by the Japanese forced labor. Approximately 30,000 Koreans remain in Sakhalin Oblast, almost residing in Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk. Korean diaspora literature writer Victoria Choi introduced the cultural representation of the Korean locality in Sakhalin through her family history spanning 4 generations, and maintain Korean identity even in difficult times, while introduce Korean traditional culture and custom in detail to Russian readers. Victoria Choi majored in economics, no literature. She began write short story while working as custom agents at the Sakhalin office. She revealed that her short story, The Road to Grandmother, was published in the Sakhalin Korean newspaper Segoria Shinmun, and that this led her to decide to write a book about the Sakhalin Koreans. This is a creative novel based on the world history dealing with the pain, suffering, and love of Koreans. Born in the Soviet Union, Kim Rea experienced the collapse of the Soviet Union and perestroika with her family as she grows up. In the process, she learned about the history of Sakhalin Koreans and realized that her life and the fate of her ancestors are inextricably linked. The novel wins the Sakhalin Kuznetsky Literary Award in Russia and the Far East Arseniev Literature Award for long novels. The novel is composed of 5 parts, and each part connects the story of 4 generations of Korean family and bases historical facts conveying the harmonious relationship between the thought, feeling, lifestyle, and long-standing interests of Sakhalin Koreans. With the onset of perestroika, Leah's life undergoes a transformation. Her growth unfolds against a backdrop of sweeping national change. From childhood, Ria comes to understand why Confucianism values a family above all else and realizes her inseparable connect to her ancestors. Much like almost a century prior, she once again experienced the tragedy of separated Sakhalin Korean family. Ultimately, she finally uncovered why her grandparents wished to have their ashes scattered in the sea. The 30-year-old ethnic Korean girl, Kim Rea, who is residing in Vladimirovka, is an honor student attending a Soviet middle school. After school, Leah visits her grandparents. On the bus, returning home from her grandparents' home, Russian female passengers make derogatory remarks about ethnic Korean to her. As a child, Leah took adult behavior for granted. But as she grows older, she began to wonder about the reason behind such attitudes. Ria's mother was reluctant to discuss the history of ethnic Korean settling in Sakhalin, asking her daughter not to dwell on the past. Based on my analysis, the protagonist's name, Ria, derives from the last 2 syllables of the words Korea Rea in Russian Korea Rea, a deliberately choice for character's name. I think the name refers to both North and South Korea. The second section, titled Karahuto, in Japanese meaning Sakhalin, recounts the experiences of ethnic Koreans living in administrative district of Toyohara City during the 1940s, alongside the story of Japanese defeat in the World War II. This section of the novel portrays the life of the first generation of Koreans, Ria's grandparents in Karahuto, illustrating their suffering and fame, their efforts to maintain their Korean cultural heritage and identity as ethnic Koreans, and their yearning to return to their homeland. The third section, themed Youth, is set in 1983 in Soviet Union in Yuzhno-Sahalinsk and Siberia. This section effectively illustrates the struggles young ethnic Koreans in Russia face regarding identity preservation and inter-ethnic marriage. Traditionally, Koreans have a custom of marriage within their own ethnic group. Ria experienced psychological unease and confusion about maintaining her identity amidst various conflict with her family. her boyfriends of difficult nationality, and herself as her grapple with whether to break or unfold this tradition. Purpose section termed family is set again the backdrop of the perestroika in 1990. A television in Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk video conference between Korean and Sakhalin was held to facilitate the reunion of separated family among the North, South Korea, and Sakhalin. The fifth section, titled Grandmother, is set in Ansan City, South Korea in 2008. This part delves into the experience of the family separation that the first generation Sakhalin Koreans and their direct descendants face once again, as only the first generation are eligible for repatriation to South Korea. One day, Ria's granddaughter is born in Russia. Same day, the grandmother passed away in nursing home in Korea. Following the Sakhalin Korean tradition, her grandmother's cremated ashes are scattered at the sea. After 1 year, the entire Kim Rea's family gathers in Korea. They celebrated Ria's granddaughter's first birthday doljanchi, and a few days later, they reformed an ancestor's memorial rites by the sea. The grandmother's lifetime longing to return to her homeland finally sees her feet touch native soil, but in accordance with Sakhalin Korean tradition, she is cremated and her ashes are scattered at sea. This section beautifully illustrates the continuation of traditional Korean cultural elements such as first birthday celebration, funeral, and weddings. Victoria Choi's novel When I Become the Sea is written in unique and beautiful style, showing the Russian readers the world of the Korean ethnic community that not well known, including family, woman, tradition, language, and psychology. This novel, translated into Korean by me, can be introduced not only Korean reader but also to the Korean diaspora round of the world, narrowing the long distance and broadening our understanding of the history of Korean naturalizing in Korea, their identity, and the life of the Korean diaspora. Victoria has opened the door to unique Korean culture and ethnic style for many, especially to the unknown world of Sakhalin, a historical Russian and Japanese territory. Victoria Choice has expressed this Korean culture world delicately and poetically, as well as honestly and vividly. She has also delicately connected the story of four generations of Korean family and tried to combine their thought and feeling as well as harmonious relationship between their lifestyle and long-standing customs. Above all, the story of a Korean family living away from their hometown and the roots is very suggestive in their pain and suffering, as well as their desire to preserve their tradition and identity, resonate with readers all nationality. This is one of the greatest role of the novel. In other words, it combines wise thought that help people understand each other and uncover difficult times together by breaking stereotypes across geographical, cultural, and temporal boundaries. This work is not simple spatial story of the former Soviet Union, but novel that connect the past and present of the life of their descendants from 1840 to present 2025. And thus, it is work that created a link in this connection. Its significance is great. I would like to suggest that we should expand the K contents of borderless K Korean literature behind the limitation of Korea 사람 literature, become the source of the new Korean wave, thereby opening up the possibility of a new genre. In borderless digital environment, K-Korea literature as transnationalism should move forward as world literature, diaspora multicultural literature, and Eurasia literature. And there should be continuous efforts and discussion to solidify its position. Thank you for listening.